second row left. Lori?
Coach, Kevin Wilson brought up an interesting point the other day that a player like Curtis Samuel, just the development he must have undergone while he was a practice player, basically, and you talked about the limits of practice, and then not to have the carrot of being the bell cow on Saturday. How do you get a player in a backup position to develop like Curtis Samuel, like Mike Weber did?
Yeah, it takes it. Sometimes people get impatient, and that's when you hear about guys transferring immediately. And I think Curtis comes from a great high school program with Danny Lamberg as his coach, and I'm sure they had many conversations. It was not easy to work your tail out and be that talented and not be, like you said, the guy to be the primary player. You know, you move Braxton Miller at H, and then you have Zeke, and a guy like that. Probably a lot of places within this art, he waited his turn, he worked his tail off, and he's getting rewarded for it now. So I think that is a great story. You know, where I'd say probably 60% would say I'm out. And I don't think it's usually the kid, or the young, I shouldn't say kid, the young man. It's maybe it's a high school coach, maybe it's that third uncle that I always talk about that doesn't know, I was going to say some bad language, doesn't know that he doesn't know.
Diddly.
So I think that's a great story. You're right. I'm so busy I didn't think about it, but yeah, he had one of those third uncles advising him that I'm going to check at this place and he probably would have moved on, but he doesn't have that. He has wonderful parents and a great high school coach. He's a great kid.
And how much of the logistics of your practice is spent making sure that you have depth and that the backups are developing? I mean, as well as putting in the game plan and getting your starters ready. I mean,
a lot. You don't usually have that quality of player waiting in the wings, because if that quality of player usually comes in, he's in. We had one perfect storm last year where all of a sudden, especially when Braxton moved into that lineup.
Front row, Bill?
Indiana, other than Michigan State, has probably played you guys tougher than anybody in the Big Ten. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, if you remember a year ago, Indiana should have beat the team on North, should have beat, or could have beat us. I've never felt, I've always had great, I think that coach is terrific. I've known him a long time. I think they're a very good scheme, and in the last 4 years, the level of quality of player just continues to get better and better. And so I don't know if I give you a reason why, other than they're a good team.
And your offensive line has obviously come together very quickly. Is there one or two things you can point to that can explain that?
Yeah, Billy Price and Pat Elfline. No chance that takes place without those two. So you can put a true freshman in there, and then some other guys haven't played a lot. So yes, those two, the leadership of the
Front row, Dave?
You've expressed disappointment with the backup offensive line, or any backup offensive lineman kind of coming into the room
Brendan
now?
Bowen's making a move right now. Demetrius Knox got hurt. He was starting to push a little bit, but other than that, Burrell's getting a little better, and Brady Taylor's getting a little better, but not to the point where we're comfortable.
Second row, middle, Ryan?
When you're recruiting a guy like Terry McLaurin, who could have stayed home and probably could have had a easier shot at playing time at a place like Purdue or Indiana, how do you sell him to come to a school like this where every receiver is a 4-star and he's had to wait 3 years to really kind of get in there?
Well, I think Terry's an interesting story in recruiting. He came to camp and he wasn't quite good enough, in our opinion. And I said, here's what you need to work on exactly. Stop into routes and his ball skills, and just the catching of football in traffic. And he went home, and you can tell he did that every day for 2 hours. And he come back 2 weeks later, and you can tell he worked on it every day for 2 hours. That was a no-brainer after that, because he's got the skill set. So I don't know if that answers your question. That's something maybe visit with Terry about that.
Yeah.
But I think he wanted to be part of something special.
Front row right here, Austin?
Urban, I don't know, off the top of your head, has anybody made more of some of those late game situations and the blowouts than DeMario McCall? I mean, it seems to flash every time you guys get him out there.
Yeah, I think he's obviously a very good open field runner, and he does. It's a good way of putting it. Takes advantage of it. The question is, has anyone taken advantage of it like he has? I don't know. I think he's done a very good job when he's been in there.
How much stock, how much value do you guys put into that? You can't predict when those situations are going to arise. So if somebody like DeMario gets out there and does perform like that, what do those reps mean for you guys?
Oh, sometimes you'll find guys that start to get themselves game ready. I know that happens on defense as well. That's where you get David Arnett's and working corner, and we certainly believe he'll be a fine player. But you like to get early in the season some of those games, so you get those reps. I remember a year ago we kind of struggled early, and you didn't get some of those young players in there to get reps. But it's always good to get those reps.
Second row left, Bill.
Urban, you mentioned your relationship with Kevin Wilson and their offensive scheme. I'm just wondering if maybe you could expand a little bit more on that, because I think the last few years in terms of creating explosive offenses in the Big Ten, it's kind of been you guys and then Indiana and everyone else behind them. So what is it that Indiana does offensively so well and that maybe you like about
I think they take advantage of their personnel. You know, when they had the big back last year, they had a big stretch team, and then they put the athletic quarterback on us against last year and did some runs on us. So I just think there's no set. When you hear people say, well, that player doesn't fit the scheme, that's usually a coaching staff that it's not very creative. You never hear Kevin Wilson say that. He creates a scheme around his best players. And I think we like to try to do the same thing. So I've always respected him on that. I've known him back from Northwestern to Oklahoma, and then obviously now.
And then is there any update on Dante Booker? I think when I said he was probable the other
Yeah,
day.
I think it's still probable. He's practicing. It's not 100% yet, but we still have a couple more days.
Far left, Matt.
I want to ask you about JT's distribution of all 10 receivers while he was in the game all passes. He seems to get it. Is that more about what JT does, or is it more about what's going on in the receiver? You know what I mean, with that many guys? What do you?
I think it's a combination of both. We nicknamed him the distributor when he was a freshman for us because he, maybe didn't have the strongest arm. Obviously, it's much stronger now, and that's when great quarterbacks. When I hear someone say, "Well, he's just assistant quarterback," the answer is, "You're damn right he is." I mean, and so is all good quarterbacks are assistant quarterbacks. The bad quarterbacks are bad assistant quarterbacks. So I think he's a guy that understands our offense in great detail, and the defense actually dictates where the ball goes, and he's very good at that.
Front row right, Tim.
Yeah, Urban, you talked about Robert Landers the other day. What specifically have you seen out of him that buoys your optimism about what he's bringing to the table?
I think you see the same thing we saw in recruiting. We didn't offer him right away.
Yeah.
And Luke Fickle, I believe it was, went and saw him and actually called me, I think, from the practice field. He says, we need to take this guy. He's a twitched up, quick twitch guy that gets underneath pads. You can't have a whole defensive line like that. But he's he creates havoc in there. He's very fast. I think Coach Johnson's done a very good job teaching him the game because he understands when he's blocked, the cross face, and that play he made in the backfield was outstanding. When the center blocked back on him, and he kind of U-turned it right behind him. That's good coaching, but it's also a skill set that he's a twitched up guy. Where Devon's a little different player, obviously.
Yeah. And do you look when you look for a guy like that? I mean, they're in the midst of it all, in the meat grinder and stuff. Do you look for toughness? Obviously you do, but I mean, what do you look for more than anything else in a guy like that that's going to be in the middle of it all?
I always look at the competitive spirit of the guy, and I'll talk to, for example, he came from a great high school program, and you simply pick up the phone. If you trust that high school coach, how's he playing the fourth quarter? How's he playing the big games, rivalry games? And I don't overstep the boundaries for me to tell Larry Johnson to take a D-line, I'm not going to do that. What I will do is I'll do all the background on it and find out, how's he going to handle our mat drills? How's he going to handle the academic rigors? How's he going to handle this? But the most important thing I always look for is is he competitive, the competitive spirit, and that's with every position.
Hey, any updates? Anybody else get dinged up this week?
KJ's getting close, so he's ahead of schedule.
Coach, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, man.